Hello everyone, I'm Gloria from the University of Hong Kong. It's very nice to meet all of you here at the annual conference of the International Sustainable Campus Network. It's my honor to have this opportunity to present our experience of collaboration between university staff and students on organizing an accessible and online seminar of a teaching development project at university. So now I'm going to use the share screen function on Zoom to share a PowerPoint slide. Please wait a moment. For the flow of this presentation, I will first talk about the reason why we think accessibility and sustainable development goals are related, followed by an overview of our project and the seminar. Then I will briefly introduce some examples of accessibility practices that we considered before and during the seminar. Finally, I will talk about the expected ways of driving toward sustainability from this collaboration, as well as acknowledgement. To begin with, let me first talk about accessibility and sustainable development goals. Establishing an accessible teaching and learning environment can foster an accepting culture that embraces diversity. It can promote self-acceptance, autonomy, and social interactions that enhance the well-being of university members with disabilities. It can also minimize the potential burden, tension, and negotiation between university members with and without disabilities. It can minimize acute and chronic stress and conflict triggered by recurrent negotiation. We could say that an accessible teaching and learning environment is particularly relevant to the university's commitment to inclusive teaching and learning. It is highly relevant to the Sustainable Development Goals number 4 and 10, which refer to quality education and reduce the inequality respectively. Sustainable Development Goals number 4, quality education, ensures inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Sustainable Development Goals number 10, reduce the inequality, ensures equal opportunities, and end discrimination. In order to establish an accessible campus, all university members, such as staff and students, should contribute to the provision and the quality of accessibility arrangement. There is a shared responsibility. Therefore, in this presentation, we would like to share our collaborative experience between university staff and students on organizing an accessible and online seminar of a teaching development project on supporting inclusive learning and teaching of university students with visual impairment in Hong Kong. As we said before, accessible teaching and learning environment is an important domain that drives towards sustainability. We hope this experience would be an example of how to involve students, research staff, and administrative staff in practicing accessibility that might drive towards sustainability. Before I go into the details of the seminar, let me briefly introduce the background of the related project. The seminar is actually one of the deliverables of a teaching development grant project entitled Enhancing Learning Experience for Students with Visual Impairment in Higher Education. It is funded by the University of Hong Kong Teaching Development Grant. We have been working on this project since the year 2019. We have an amazing team. The team of core investigators come from different higher education institutions in Hong Kong. We come from diverse background, disciplines, and expertise, such as education, law, and psychology. And for me, I am postdoctoral fellow and a project manager. My academic background is psychology. Personally, I have disability experience. I have congenital muscular dystrophy, and I am user of power wheelchair. Through this project, we experience and enjoy the power of appreciating diversity and the joy of working with people from different backgrounds but with similar values. Our value is embracing diversity, disability, and accessibility. To advance the equality and diversity in the learning environment and experience at higher education institutions in Hong Kong, our project aims to: first, examine the learning experience, needs, and challenges of university students with visual impairment. Second, to investigate how and to what extent the learning and teaching activities and environments at higher education institutions in Hong Kong advance the academic and whole person development of university students with visual impairment. And third, develop a set of guidelines and recommendations for policies, resources, support, training, or other innovative practices for pedagogy and curriculum to support students with visual impairment for promoting equality in learning and teaching related to supporting students with diverse learning needs. There are various components to achieve the project aims. Since the beginning of the project, we have already conducted a total of 13 focus group interviews of 30 participants who came from various local universities. They included current students with visual impairment, current students without visual impairment, but having experience in supporting students with visual impairment, current students without visual impairment, or experience in supporting students with disabilities, alumni with visual impairment, as well as academic and non-academic staff with experience in supporting students with visual impairment. The second component is the development of a guideline on fostering inclusive practices at higher education institutions in Hong Kong. We produced the trial version in around March this year, which contains 16 chapters. Chapter 1 explains the project background. Chapter 2 defines some guiding principles. Chapter 3 to 8 are about establishing an inclusive campus. Chapters 9 to 16 corresponds to the different stages of university life. We also did several conference presentations. We conducted the first seminar in March this year, and this seminar is the focus of this presentation. So now I'm going to give an overview of this seminar. It was the first seminar of our project. It was conducted online via Zoom in March this year in partnership with the Center for the Advancement in Inclusive and Special Education of the University of Hong Kong. The theme of this online seminar was supporting inclusive learning and teaching of students with visual impairment at universities, past, present, and future. In Chinese, the title is 支援視障學生的學與教，大學融合教育的過去、現況與前瞻網上研討會。It was a 1.5-hour-long online seminar that was conducted mainly in Cantonese, supplemented by English. This online seminar aims at arousing participants' awareness and engaging them into the discussion of advancing inclusive education at universities. It also aims at sharing the preliminary findings of the focus group interviews and the development of the trial version of the guideline that we have mentioned in a few slides ago. To engage participants in the discussion of inclusive education, we invited a distinguished guest, Mr. Chan Yo Chang, MBE, the president of the Hong Kong Blind Union and the honorary university fellow of the University of Hong Kong, to deliver a keynote speech on his personal experiences and valuable insight in supporting the learning and teaching of students with visual impairments at universities. The second part was the presentation on the preliminary findings of the focus group interviews. It is followed by the presentation on the development of the guideline. Participants actively raised different questions during the two question and answer sessions, ranging from inclusive education policy, real-life examples of educational approaches that promote inclusion, first-hand experiences of interactions with people with disabilities, examples of inclusive terminology, and practical usage of the guideline trial version. For the participants' profile, there were 151 successfully registered participants from diverse backgrounds and more than 10 higher education institutions. Most of them were either students or staff. There were 3 secondary school teachers, 2 advocates, and 2 staff from non-governmental organizations as well. 10 participants indicated that they have different types of self-reported disabilities, including attention deficit or hyperactive disorder, physical disability, visual impairment, and or hearing impairment. Due to the pandemic, the whole process of organization was conducted online via Zoom, instant messaging, emails, and phone calls. While we looked for a face-to-face seminar, we realized and appreciated the flexibility of online mode. It is relatively less affected by geographical locations. In fact, our organizing committee members and participants came from Hong Kong and abroad. Our organizing committee members included the principal and the co-investigators of the project manager, which is me. I'm also the seminar coordinator. We have several undergraduate student helpers. Our support team included an administrative support staff from the Center for the Advancement in Inclusive and Special Education, information technological support staff from the University of Hong Kong, and a student helper as the simultaneous interpreter. We also got 2 sign language interpreters. There was heavy involvement of those undergraduate student assistants. We make use of online resources to brief them regarding some essential ideas about accessibility and examples of the practice, such as considering the color contrast and font when designing promotional posters. We highly value, respect, and take everyone's ideas and opinions into consideration throughout the process. We encourage student-led information search on the accessibility features of the Zoom platform. One of the student assistants had prior experience of working on accessibility issues and supporting people with visual impairment. We emphasize mutual sharing and learning among the whole team. The following part will be examples of accessibility practices that we have considered for the online seminar. Some important points to note here. First, the following examples are not exhaustive. Second, accessibility is not merely a checklist of any fixed types of arrangements, such as support services, physical design, or personalized accommodations. The following practices are only some essential examples that we have seriously considered when we organized the online seminar. There can be an infinite number of types of accessibility arrangements and ways of providing such services. Case-by-case and careful consideration is essential. We also need an all-rounded value system that cultivates an inclusive culture of the campus. We tried our best to explore and apply various accessibility practices, aiming at demonstrating and raising the awareness of our fellow colleagues and students on the feasibility of implementing accessibility at university. The examples are font and font size, color contrast, and wordings and phrases related to disability. Regarding font size, of course it cannot be too small or too large to read. For the font, on this PowerPoint slide, there are two text boxes. The words is the same in terms of the content and font size, but the font is different. Which one would you prefer, font A or B? For all the materials of our seminar, basically we avoided the use of font B here, or other fonts similar to font B here. We preferred font A relatively here because it is relatively easier to read. In the process of making preparation for this seminar, our student helpers have learned about how to use color contrast checker as a reference for poster design. Color contrast of the promotional poster and presentation PowerPoint slides were carefully checked against the Web Content Accessibility Guideline using the color contrast analyzer. On this PowerPoint slide, we show a screenshot of the color contrast analyzer in the top left corner of our seminar promotional poster. How does this analyzer work? One of the ways is we enter the background and the font colors respectively. On this slide, it shows an example of checking the color contrast of the seminar title against the poster background. Both background and the words are of blue colors here. And the analyzer will tell us whether this color combination would fulfill or fail the accessibility guidelines. The red symbol in the results part shows that it fails the requirement. If it fails, then it might suggest that we need to consider changing the color of either the background or the words, or both. Otherwise, the poster might not be accessible to some readers because of insufficient color contrast. After we change the color of the words from blue to black here and redo the check, this time, the green symbol in the results part shows that this color combination fulfilled the accessibility requirement, so we use this color combination in the final poster. The current slide presents the difference in the results of the two color contrast check for you to compare. The next item for consideration is phrases related to accessibility. Apart from arranging different accessibility practices at the outset, we may also include phrases in the promotional materials and seminar enrollment form, such as, should you have any questions regarding accessibility arrangement, please feel free to contact our team via email. In Chinese, 如有任何關於通達安排查詢，歡迎電郵與我們聯絡。We should always proactively reach out to the participants to invite them to indicate their accessibility needs. It could let participants feel being more valued and included. The next item is about the question, do you have any disability? In Chinese, 你有任何受障情況嗎? That appear in the seminar enrollment form. For this question, we give a list of options for participants to select. Multiple answers are allowed. If you compare the panel A and B on this slide, which panel would you prefer? Could you spot any differences between the two panels, A and B here? If you compare the panel A and B, the list of disability is basically the same except for the last two items. For the panel B, which is more commonly seen in event enrollment forms, it only included the item of no disability, 没有小站, besides those disability status. But for panel A, which is the list adopted in our seminar enrollment form, we have replaced the option of no disability with the option of currently no self-reported disability, 目前没有小站情况. And we have also added the option of prefer not to disclose any disability status, 选择不透露受障情况. We think that everyone could be disabled by the environment at a certain moment. We also think that we should respect personal preference and privacy. The online enrollment form and the post-seminar feedback form were created using Qualtrics. We make use of the built-in checker and Qualtrics to help check the survey accessibility to screen reader. We also tried the compatibility with different gadgets, such as desktop computer and mobile phone. Those we have discussed so far were about pre-seminar arrangement. Now I'm going to share some arrangement that we have done during the online seminar. Before the start of the online seminar, our student assistant produced a Zoom system and accessibility arrangement walkthrough video. The video was played on loop with caption and alternate language version, including Cantonese and English, for around 15 minutes before the start of the seminar. It could help to familiarize participants with the Zoom system. During the seminar, our assistants provide live captioning in English, Cantonese English simultaneous interpretation, and controlled the visibility of the Zoom windows of the speakers and sign language interpreters by the pin or spotlight function in Zoom. On-hand sign language interpretation was provided by sign interpreters from the SLCO Community Resources Limited. For the presentations at the seminar, we used PowerPoint slides. We have particularly considered color contrast, the use of highlighter frame, and the layout of bilingual text. For the color contrast, practically it is the same as what we have discussed about the poster title color before, so I'm not going to repeat it here. For the highlighter frame, sometimes we made use of a colored frame to help audience follow what the speaker was talking about, just like the frame shown on the current slide here. For the bilingual text in Chinese and English, we have thought of different layouts. Here we present the three possible layouts of the bilingual content we have considered before. Layout A, the English content follows the Chinese content horizontally in the same line for each item. Layout B, the English content follows the Chinese content vertically in the next line for each item. Layout C, the slide was like having two columns, where the Chinese content was on one side and the English content on the other side. Which layout would you prefer? Layout A, B, or C? Although we understand that there might be individual differences in the preference of the layout. We finally selected layout C. Due to the inconsistent length of each item, we think layout A or B may result in a relatively unstructured content. But for layout C, the content structure seems to be relatively more consistent throughout the presentation. Moreover, at the beginning of the presentation, we explicitly tell the participants about this layout arrangement for the subsequent PowerPoint slides. We hope it could give them a better sense of what the slides will look like. So after we have briefly introduced the accessibility preparation for this online seminar, finally let us talk about how this experience could drive towards sustainable goals. As mentioned in the beginning of this presentation, we believe an accessible teaching and learning environment is particularly relevant to the Sustainable Development Goals 4 and 10, which is quality education and reduce the inequality. The theme of the online seminar is related to engaging different stakeholders into advancing inclusive education at universities. It is already relevant to the SDG 4 and 10 directly. From the perspective of the experience and the process of organizing this online seminar, one focus is demonstration and information sharing. We hope to demonstrate the feasibility of incorporating various accessibility practice and to make it a common practice even for other events at the faculty or even the university. This is not only for our team, but also to the university community and to the seminar participants. Some colleagues told us that it was the first time they came across a Zoom seminar with such a series of accessibility practice, especially with mainly the assistance by undergraduate student helpers. Our seminar shows that it is indeed feasible. We enjoyed the collaboration between staff and students a lot. We hope other colleagues will follow suit in the future campus events. A colleague also shared with us she encountered a participant in one of her seminars before. That participant required sign language interpretation. At that time, that participant booked on sign language interpretation herself before the seminar and attended the seminar together with the sign interpreter. The staff thought that it was good enough, but then we realized that we should rather provide this service at the outset in order to make the event more accessible. This time, we shared the information of how to book sign interpretation service. We understand that accessibility practice should be one of the basic things to do when we organize events, but given the lack of experience and human resources, we hope this could be a promising and encouraging starting point. For example, we have learned about the need to consider color contrast and font when designing promotional posters. Moreover, one NGO contacted us after the seminar to seek advice on the simultaneous interpretation and live captioning on Zoom for their upcoming webinar on promoting inclusive society in Hong Kong. We are very excited receiving such an encouraging response from the community partners. Among the organizing committee, we mutually learned a lot from each other. We appreciated and respected comments and ideas from each other. Student helpers and staff were of equal status. We all valued the mindset of diversity and inclusion. The experience of bringing about accessibility practices to the main discussion among the organizing team was very empowering. As I am the seminar coordinator who has disability experience, even though we could not meet each other face-to-face during the whole period, I felt even more interconnected with the whole team and even the online seminar itself compared to many other seminars I have taken part in the past. I was very excited seeing accessibility became part of the mainstream discussion throughout the process. It is important to bring the voices of the voiceless to the mainstream. As for student assistance, after the seminar, they will help document the processes for future reference and improvement. We believe that such a documentation will greatly help raise the awareness of accessible event arrangement in campus. It could also become a case study to be included in our drafted guideline on inclusive practices at universities for colleagues and students' future reference. We believe that it would be a particularly useful example for university staff and students because it is an event that has been locally conducted instead of some examples borrowed from some online resources or other universities. Our student helpers are current undergraduates. They could share the experience and information with other fellow students, especially for those who are members of student societies. It will greatly help spread the message of the importance and practice of accessibility on campus. Our student assistants are also pre-service teachers. We hope they will be able to apply this experience to their current practicum and teaching career in the future. We hope they could apply the mindset of diversity, inclusion, and accessibility, and the actual experience of practicing different accessibility arrangements in making their teaching environment more inclusive for catering diverse needs of their students. Finally, we would like to take this opportunity to express our sincere gratitude to the valuable support from all participants, our project team, student assistants, guest speaker, and other supporting members. Here comes to the end of our presentation. If you have any questions regarding our project, you are most welcome to email us at tdg2018inclusion@gmail.com. Thank you very much. Wishing everyone health and safety. Thank you.